Hi, everyone. I am so excited that y'all could join us this afternoon or maybe morning, depending on where you are. I'm not quite sure. If you guys will just let us know in the chat. I see a bunch of y'all are already saying hello, which is awesome. Feel free to let us know where you're tuning in from. We're just going to give everybody another quick minute to see if anybody's popping in a little bit late. And then we'll go ahead and get started. I know I am in Virginia. So it's kind of a dreary, like a little bit of a gross day today over here. Taylor and Catherine, do you guys want to say where y'all are right now?
Yes, so we are in beautiful San Diego, and it's a little overcast here also. So maybe the whole country is gearing up for fall. Yeah.
Megan's got a beautiful view today.
Yeah, so I'm based in New York, and somehow I'm the only one with sun. But I'll take it because the snow will be here very soon.
Yes, it definitely will. Well, awesome, guys. I'm really excited that y'all could join us, and we're just going to go ahead and jump right in and get started. We have a lot of really awesome content to share with you guys today. So thank you for just taking some time out of your day to hang out with us. We really appreciate it. So we'll go ahead and just introduce ourselves so you're not like, who are these four women like talking to us for the next like hour? So we'll go ahead and just do quick, short little introductions. My name is Kat, and I am the founder and host of Creative at Heart Conference. We just hosted our 7th conference in Raleigh last month, and I was really grateful that all 3 of these ladies were able to join us in Raleigh. So we had aisle planner support as well as 2 bright lights. And we just had such an incredible experience. The weather was beautiful. The venue was beautiful. The educators were phenomenal. The attendees were amazing. I could literally just talk for an hour about Raleigh, obviously, and I'm not going to because that's not why you're here. But we had a really great time, and I'm excited that we get to kind of continue that fun a little bit right now by doing a little mini virtual reunion and talking a little bit more. So I'll let the other ladies say hello to y'all too.
Awesome. Thanks, Kat. So I'm Megan. As I mentioned, I'm based in New York, and I am the manager of 2 Bright Lights. So if you aren't familiar with what 2 Bright Lights is, we are the simplest tool for photographers, planners, and any type of creative to connect with publishers and showcase their work with the whole goal of finding a way to continue to build your brand. We all know that there's only so many hours in the day, and yet our to-do lists are miles long, and so that's why we're here today.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Taylor, and I am the Creative and Marketing Director at Aisle Planner.
And I am Catherine, and I am the Director of PR and Partnerships at Aisle Planner. And if you're not familiar with Aisle Planner yet, I hope you are. But we are business management and planning tools for wedding professionals.
Yay, awesome. Thank you guys so much for just saying hello. And guys, please feel free, like as y'all are popping in, feel free to go ahead and say hello in the chat, just so we know you're here and we can say hi right back to you. So we're going to keep on going. I know that for some of y'all, you're probably wedding planners, so you appreciate a good timeline or agenda, right? So before we jump into all of the content, we want to just give you guys a quick little play-by-play of everything you can expect to hear from us over the course of the next little bit. Oh, Kim, yes, there is audio and video. Can you guys hear us all okay? Let's like take a little pause and make sure. If you can't, try like refreshing or even maybe even switching over to Google Chrome. Sometimes Chrome can work better in just a webinar format than Safari. Yep, Jen, that's perfect too. So yeah, if somebody doesn't mind popping in and saying, Alicia, yes, if you just follow that link, it'll pull right up for you. I don't want to get into all of this stuff if you guys can't hear us. That would be tragic, right? If we've talked for 60 minutes. So, well, if somebody can just let me know that y'all can hear us, that would be really helpful. And then we'll kind of keep on going. And I don't know, it might just be on my screen, but the slides are still on the first one.
Really?
But maybe that's a frozen thing for me.
Megan?
I'm still on the first one too.
Sorry, guys. We're going to get some of these little glitches worked out. Katie, okay. As long as you guys can see in here, that's really all we care about, y'all. We just want to make sure you guys can get all of this good stuff. Well, I'll let Taylor and Catherine play around with the slides and refresh that for a bit and kind of get that one popped up. And I am going to just keep on going and telling you guys a little bit more about what we're going to be talking about today. Because like I said, I know that some of y'all are probably planners in the room, so you appreciate a good agenda, right? And a good little structure of everything that we're going to be talking about. So today we're going to be going over what makes a good submission, how to collaborate with other vendors, coming up with unique content for your submissions. You're published. Now what? What happens after that published process? And then tips to make that pitch successful. We know that you guys are working really, really hard on your portfolios. And just like our little tagline says for this webinar, our process with this is to really make sure that you get the most out of every single image in your portfolio, because you're putting a lot of time, a lot of talent, a lot of financial means into making your portfolio what it is today. So we really want to make sure that you get the most mileage out of it. So why are you here? You've got a great portfolio, but the only person who knows it is you. Anybody else sometimes feel that way, right? Like you're like, man, look at all of these incredible clients that I've been able to work with, or look at this amazing venue I've been able to shoot at, but you feel like you're not necessarily getting the exposure that you want because of maybe the lack of submission that you've had in the past, or you're not really understanding how to best get that content out there. Maybe you're here because you're looking for new ideas and inspiration to market your business. You know that you want to continue to up level. You know that marketing means a lot for your business and can kind of make it or break it. And that's what we want to help you with today. Maybe you're here because you've tried submitting your work or pitching stories, but you haven't really been successful. Guys, I feel you. It can be really scary. Sometimes you feel like a sleazy car salesman when you're trying to like pitch your work or like formulate this really cool story to go along with a portfolio or a styled shoot or a wedding. And we want to help you with all of that too. So don't fret if you can feel that way. Maybe you're here because you know getting your business and brand in front of your ideal client is important. We talk about ideal clients all the time, but maybe you don't have a huge marketing budget. So you wonder, well, how can I get the most out of what I've already done? Because it does cost money to continue to do style shoots or continue to work with all of these dream clients and then potentially submit that work. And last but not least, guys, maybe you're here because you just missed us and you wanted to hang out. Maybe we all had it creative at heart and you just wanted to come and hang out with us virtually. And if that's the case, I'm totally all for it. And I'm really glad that you're here. So I'm going to let the girls take it away and really break down all of that stuff that we just talked about and hopefully answer all of your questions. As you have questions, pop them into the chat. I'll be over there facilitating that and we'll make sure we get all of the questions. Thanks, guys. Thanks, guys.
Helps when I turn my microphone on. Perfect. So Kat, that was a perfect introduction. And you're so right. There are so many times when you think about, okay, I've got this great portfolio, but nobody else is seeing it. So how do you get that out there in front of people? And what do you need to think about? So I think the first thing that it's really important to think about when you're putting together the types of images that you are sending to a publisher or to a PR pitch or anytime you're trying to get those out there, is what is the purpose of these images? The real purpose is to inspire other couples, other people who are planning these events. So how do you do that? You come up with 100 to 150 images, which I know that's really hard to pare your amazing albums down to only 100 or 150, but believe me, it's worth it. And make sure that they are 70% detail shots and 30% portraits. So I'm sure you're now like, wait, what? 70% detail shots and 30% portraits? Like, what if I have an event that doesn't have so many details, or the couple wasn't really into that? I'm not talking detail shots from the perspective of like, oh, the ring box or the centerpieces necessarily. I'm talking about even details when it comes to an empty ceremony site. There are so many details built in directly in the venue. And it's so important to capture that because, again, think about it. We're going back to finding ways that we can inspire prospective couples because Obviously, again, the goal is that you are getting your work out there, inspiring those couples, and then they want to call you. So you can do that by having it 70% detail shots and 30% portraits. The next thing is really high quality images. Making sure that they took place within the last 12 months. Trends change very quickly, especially for all the planners on the call, or you know that what was in last week can sometimes already be out. So it's really important. Things can age quickly. If it's especially timeless and a really classic event, you might be able to stretch it to 18 months, but 12 months is a really good rule of thumb. And then this almost is the most important thing, a full vendor list. We have all probably been in the position where our work is out there and yet somebody has been left off that vendor list or the credits. And that is not a great place to be, especially when you're talking about trying to get into print, because that you can't fix. They will be left off of that. So you want to make sure you are providing the editors with as much information as possible. So again, it goes back to the images. It goes back to the vendor information and their websites, their social media, their contact information. All of that is super important because you want to make the editor's job as easy as possible so that they receive these great images that look beautiful, they're recent, and what? I have all the vendor information? This never happens. I have to accept it. So that's definitely an important thing to remember. And then a pro tip that we did want to share is do your research. I know that it can be super time consuming. And it can just be something that you're like, I don't have time for this. I have so many other things. I just need to get it out the door. But let me tell you, I promise it will pay off. Figuring out what styles of that publication matches your style is just going to put you ahead of the pack. And a really easy way to do this is check out the Instagram profiles of so many of the editors you're looking at. It's a great way to see a quick visual representation of exactly the type of work they're looking for. Yeah, so that's basically what goes into a good submission.
All right, so we are now going to walk through the art of collaborating with vendor partners. So as all of you on the other end of this know, it's very hard to do either a wedding or an event or a styled shoot all by yourself. You know, you need a photographer to take pictures, you need a stylist in order to make the images look good. When it comes to a wedding, obviously there's about a bazillion things you need to make that event go off without a hitch. And so to start, I think looking at the event or the styled shoot from a really high level before you walk into the day of. So mapping out with your photographer the photos that you want to gain from this event or styled shoot. So things, you know that Two Bright Lights recommends 70% detail shots and 30% portraits. So you want to make sure that this photographer knows that you really expect to see a good amount of detailed shots at the end of the event when you're getting the photos in your inbox. You know, I typically recommend that planners, when you are styling out an event, the day of a wedding, make sure that you focus on one table that is completely set first. So when your photographer has time to get in and take pictures, it might not be when the entire room is done, and that's okay. But if they can take detail shots of the place setting, you know, the table numbers are out there, all the florals are set, lights and candles, even though it's daylight, so you can get a full table photograph. And then you don't have to worry about the hustle and bustle of cocktail hour and then guests coming in, and all of a sudden your shots are ruined because there's a whole bunch of arms and legs and cocktails in your image. And another thing that I typically recommend is when it comes to shooting the invitation, there's so much going on specific to the day of a wedding that a lot of times photographers will not have time to sit and work with you to, you know, map out this beautiful flat lay, and you certainly will not have time as a planner or a designer on the day of the wedding to really make a beautiful image. So I would recommend working with your clients, maybe even borrowing their rings the day before, very scary, the day before the wedding. You know, make sure you have the full invitation suite If it is a client that you did not help design the invitation, ask for it in advance, even ask for them to send you one. You're going to want to make sure that you have an envelope that does not have all of the mail stamps, like something that didn't actually go through the mail. You know, beautiful vintage stamps, yes, but all of the processing from the Postal Service does not need to be on your invitation. But really give it its own time. You know, set apart an hour, get florals ahead of time from your florist, make a beautiful flat lay, because that always makes a submission pop. And lastly, I highly recommend setting aside specific time to shoot different areas of an event. So as a planner, my expertise, you know, I have the power to create the timeline in any way that I want, kind of. And I always made sure to set aside 30 minutes and mark it on the timeline, you know, whether that's making sure that your reception site, your ceremony site are done a little bit earlier than most people would expect. You know, set aside 30 minutes that's just for you and the photographer to walk through the site, to take pictures, to take detail shots, to make sure that you have everything on your list ahead of time, even things that you want to share on social. Just time for you. And I know a lot of planners come back to me and tell me that I'm crazy, that there is not time to do this, but I promise if you put it on the timeline ahead of time, you will make it work, even if it means getting to the venue an extra 30 minutes early that you're not charging for, but just to set yourself up for success.
And moving off of that, because my whole world is about turning anything and everything into pieces of content, we're going to talk a little bit about how to use your portfolio in a more unique or non-traditional way. And where I want to start is really drilling into you that you should not look at your portfolio as a fixed set of real wedding or styled shoot submissions. You know, at the end of one calendar year, you can end up with 10,000 images that very likely, you know, some of them, they're not going to be that great, but you're going to end up with an overwhelming library of really beautifully styled inspiration. And you can use that in ways that are not just submitting, you know, 100 to 150 images of a particular wedding or styled shoot to a publisher for feature. What you can do is go through and think of article headlines or titles that, you know, a small collection of your images would be really fantastic to support. So for example, flower crowns, they're not going anywhere anytime soon. People love them. But you can come up with a collaboration with the photographer and the florist and develop an article that's about, you know, specifically fall flower crowns and, you know, best practices, when you should be bringing in a pro versus DIYing it, what types of flowers you should be using, and then go through your library of images and pull examples to include to support the actual article itself. You know, that way, you know, you're supporting your photographer by giving them credit. You know, quite possibly you're collaborating with many photographers if you're doing something similar to this whole fall flower crown idea, as well as multiple florists. And that way, you know, when you bring a group of people together and you have them really bought in on something, when push comes to shove and it actually gets picked up and published, then we'll talk about that a little bit down the line. But then you can really get a lot out of, you know, a random collection of images. When it comes to writing, I know that that freaks a lot of people out. I never thought that when I started working in the wedding industry that I would spend so much of my time just writing words on a page. Mm-hmm. And so if this is something that you're not terribly comfortable with, consider hiring a freelance copywriter to actually go through and take your, you know, jumble of notes and ideas, or, you know, the collection that you get from the, you know, 3 florists that you're quoting for this piece, and have them turn it into a really strong article. Because in the end, if you can do the editor's work for them, Megan mentioned this earlier, if you can deliver something that is ready to go to print, you are much more likely to have that submission accepted. And another thing that I want to put into your brains is as you go through the process of submitting your work, you're going to end up with some direct contacts to publications, editors, associate editors, whomever the real person is that's responding to you, you should be stowing those email contacts away. And then on a regular basis, do some proactive outreach, ask them what their upcoming content calendar looks like or what their editorial calendar looks like for the next year so that you can help them do their job by getting ahead of what their calendar is going to need and giving them exactly what it is they want for their upcoming publications. And so now we're going to move into what happens when you've been published. Where do you go from there? And I think Catherine is talking about this one.
So as soon as you find out that your work has been picked up and published, first things first, spread the word. And that takes a little bit more skill than just finding out Wednesday morning that you've been published and all of a sudden put it on your personal Facebook and expect everyone you know to see it. There's not a whole lot of benefit to your work only being seen by the people who happen to be reading that blog that day. So there are a lot of fun things that you can do with your work, but just know it really is the tip of the iceberg once you actually get published. So I think first things first, let your clients know that their wedding was featured. So sending them a quick email, tell them to share with their friends. If there are any specific words or the vendor list that you want to pass along to your clients for them to also share, that is a huge plus for all the vendors who might get forgotten on the client side of things. That's not a fun thing. Let's say the stationer might not have a direct contact with the actual client because they were working with you so closely, and then they feel a little left out. It's kind of a weird thing for them to reach out to the client and ask to be included. So please make sure to send out vendor lists when you can.
Yeah.
And then
Megan.
Yeah. So going along with that, making sure you are sending that feature list to all of the vendors. You want them to be out there sharing it with all of their connections as well, because then your name and your work is appearing in all of these news feeds of people you don't even know. And those are your potential clients.
And then the next thing you want to do is just spam the internet with images and links and mentions to all of those vendor partners that you've sent them everything that they need in order to do the same. So when Megan spoke at Creative at Heart, she gave this really great presentation about what happens when you actually take the time to send your vendors everything that they need to know, and just the the exponential growth and reach that one particular social share can have. And this is something where I think it's kind of funny that a lot of people don't do this, but you should take the time to brag about it and put that feature badge on your website. When it comes to potential clients who are visiting your website, maybe for the first, second, or third time, and they're, doing their due diligence and, stalking you, you want to let them know that your work has been published and featured online. I remember when I first started in the industry, and I thought that it was really, it's not the easiest thing, but I thought that getting published and featured on, an online blog or in print was this thing that only the richest and most famous, planners and wedding professionals could do. So I always put myself back in that position. If I was a potential client and I felt that same way, that it's mission impossible to get featured somewhere, seeing a featured on badge or many of them on someone's website was really can carry a lot of weight in terms of validating your expertise. And Catherine is going to lead the charge on tips to make your pitch successful.
So when you are kind of mapping out the work that you want to send out to different outlets on the internet that you would like to be featured. Really make sure, kind of what Megan said at the beginning, that you know who your audience is that you are sending it to. You know, the work of an editor is to create and publish content that is worthwhile for their readers. You know, if they're no longer fulfilling their readers' needs, they lose an audience, and therefore they lose advertising dollars, and then their outlet gets swallowed up. So, you know, goal number one is continuing to put out great content that will make their reader happy. So make sure that you're submitting work. You know, you have weddings, and you work with certain photographers, there's certain couples who have a specific aesthetic. I mean, I think we can all think of the top wedding blogs and know that they have a very specific look to the weddings that they publish. So make sure that you are submitting the right wedding to the right outlet.
And the next piece, or the next tip, is really paying attention to your subject line and your submission title. When an editor gets an email, you know, if you have done a good job and you've stored away all those direct contacts and you're emailing an editor directly, you know, if you send them an email subject line or a pitch that just says "real wedding for submission," that's pretty flat. What you want to do is turn your subject line into the potential submission title or the actual publication title, the feature title, because that's going to catch their attention. And if you put yourself in, you know, their shoes, and you also have done your research and due diligence and figured out what it is they need for their content calendar, if you pitch them an email that's got the exact title that they're looking for, you can be pretty sure that they're actually going to open that email. And then the other thing that you really want to do, sorry that I'm going to talk about how much you need to write for all of your submissions, but writing a well thought out and this isn't proper English, I'm not speaking the way I would actually write, and detailful description of what the submission is. You know, details about what the aesthetic is, what the inspiration was, you know, so pulling out tidbits about what your favorite aspects were. You know, putting something together that when an editor, a submission editor is reading it, they can really start to imagine what they're going to be looking at before they actually get to the images. Slide is delayed.
So when it comes to submitting your work for publication, you know, a lot of times you'll send emails out that do not get a response. You almost need to swallow your pride a little bit and think, you know, just because they're ignoring you does not mean they don't like you, doesn't mean they don't like your work. But a lot of times, you know, editors are getting hundreds of submissions every day. And I would really recommend following up. You know, take the time to send them a follow-up email. You know, people don't really have phone numbers posted anywhere anymore, but just kind of let them know, hey, I'm still wondering if you are taking a look at this submission. If not, please let me know. I would like to submit it to another publication, but wanted to give you the rights to exclusivity first. And chances are, if you tell them that, they know that they're sitting on your work and you're not sending it out to anyone else until they give you a hard yes or hard no, then a lot of times they will respond. And even if it's just one word, try not to take it personally, just says no. At least you know you're not waiting for it.
Megan, do you want to take this one?
Sure. So it's true. Follow up to ask for feedback if it has been declined. You never know. You may not hear anything, but a lot of times when you take the time to show that you're truly interested in getting published on that publication or that blog, it shows that you care, and the editor will really take that to heart. Another thing is, though, when you get that not a fit or declined status, it's not the end. You can resubmit, and you should resubmit. So you can submit to one exclusive, or you can submit to multiple non-exclusives at the same time. That is the beauty of non-exclusives. So I know people and photographers who've had the same wedding published 10 times. And it reaches different audiences with each one, and one is not better than the other. So definitely keep that in mind when you're getting maybe a little bit down that your work hasn't been picked up.
Okay, guys, thank y'all so much for sharing all of that with everyone. Everyone in the chat, if y'all have any questions, we would absolutely love to be able to take some time and really make sure that you're leaving here feeling really equipped and excited to now go and look back at your portfolio and start submitting work. To kind of kick off some questions, I actually thought of one that I'd love to get y'all's opinion on while we're like waiting to see if anybody else has any. What is y'all's opinion on how old, like what is too old, I guess, for work in terms of submission? So like right now we're in the thick of wedding season in 2017. Is it too late to go back and say they haven't submitted work in 2016 to go ahead and resubmit that or submit that for the first time? Like what is y'all's opinions on that?
Yeah, so we generally say the rule of thumb is 12 months. Trends change really quickly. So 12, you can sometimes stretch that to 18. But that is a really good question because you also have to keep in mind, okay, last year you did a wedding that was around New Year's. New Year's doesn't come around again until next year. But if you pitch it far enough in advance, because when you think about it, editors only have a couple slots for those very like seasonally specific or holiday specific editorial features. So getting it in front of them sooner as opposed to later is really beneficial. So if you're thinking about print for something that's very seasonal, I would definitely get it in front of them at least 6 months ahead of time. For a daily blog that is a bit smaller, you could probably be thinking about 3 or 2 months out.
That's awesome. Thank you, Megan, for sharing. I know I'm even thinking about like my work from last year and like, okay, I need to, submit some of that stuff I never did. So that's really great to just get some feedback on that like 12 to 18 months, but also thinking about seasonally and kind of what's going on right now. I haven't seen any other questions like pop up in the chat. So why don't we kind of go ahead in order, like just to thank y'all for hanging out with us for this webinar. The girls all have a little thank you with both Two Bright Lights and with Aisle Planner. So I'll let them just kind of explain that. And if you guys think of any questions, feel free to pop them in while they're talking about this. Oh, I actually just saw one. Oh, Jen, perfect timing. Is there a way to get inspiration or a template on how to know what to write for submissions? That's a great question.
I feel like that's got Taylor written all over it.
And we're sitting there like,
I literally went, do I have a template? I don't have a template. But I wonder, Kat, are you sending out a follow-up email to your, I don't know.
We absolutely can. Yes. So everybody who's registered will get a copy of the replay. Okay. So we can include additional information like if you'd like to.
So maybe what I can do is send you an example of something that I have sent to editors in the past. I actually, oddly enough, have a lot of success with a very succinct email that basically just says, I'm really excited to submit this piece to you, and I have the title in there, and I let them know that the vendor list is attached. I actually say the full vendor list is attached to this email, and a link to the images is below. And I just, I map it out. I make it really quick for them to read, and then if I know that it's a publication that really wants a description, because there actually are lots of publications that they don't publish any copy with a real wedding or styled shoot. But if it is, like, Style Me Pretty, you have to spend quite a bit of time writing a pretty lengthy description for them. So if it's like I had mentioned, if it's a publication that needs a description, and it's longer than just a paragraph, then I'll include that on the same document that the full vendor list is on. So there's only one attachment. And
I would say, just seeing Jen's question for kind of content for the submission, I would think about, if this is a wedding, think about the high points in the wedding for you. Think about the things that really stood out as being the most interesting. So a lot of times the couple's story is probably very interesting to them, maybe not so interesting to blogs, which is terrible. But, you know, like a quick one line about their story, if they met in some, you know, fantastic way, that's kind of like, whoa, you wouldn't believe that they met this way. And then just kind of like a quick description of the event as a whole. So, you know, they dined on, you know, X, Y, and Z, if it was over the top chef, let's say, or, you know, the venue or the seasonality, the time of year, you know, it's a beautiful crisp fall evening. Like, if you're able to kind of set the scene for what they're about to see through the images, kind of pique their interest, to pop out little details, you know, maybe the favors or something very special, or the place settings, or if someone gave a really awesome, you know, reading or speech, you know, it kind of has to be over the top special for it to be people related.
Called out.
But I would go through and kind of describe the details and describe what the event felt like. Kind of go through the 5 senses. I'm kind of rambling because I'm just thinking on this out on the fly. But if you kind of go through what it felt like, what it looked like, what it smelled like, what, you know, you were hearing when you walked into a room, kind of start to describe it so that they're starting to get kind of a picture of what to expect, like I said, before they open the images. Yeah,
and I think it really helps to think about what is the whole goal when you're submitting. Your goal is to inspire other people. So what are the little aspects that you can pick out? So when Catherine mentioned like the little details, not so much about the couple unless it like has a lot to do with the entire, you know, the decor for the day or how they came up with their whole theme. It really tie it back to what makes it unique. If it's something that you think could have been seen anywhere, don't say that. Try to come up with something that makes that whole event unique. And tying it into just thinking back for the note to the editor, if you know that they always feature like killer cake shots, say that you have a cake shot that you just know that they're going to love to see and want to put on their Instagram. So tying it back that way, it also shows that you've done your research and you know what types of work that they do feature.
And one thing that, just one final note, is I want to make sure as you're writing these submissions and descriptions, be a very harsh editor on yourself of leaving things out. So, you know, if it was a traditional ceremony, it was outdoors, and that was it, don't include it in the description. You know, you don't need to say, and then we went to the ceremony, and then we went to the reception, and then cocktail hour did this. You know, only the exciting stuff. Really just like kind of cut out the traditional elements to a wedding. If it was a very standard, you know, it's a beautiful thing for the couple and their guests. But from an editor's perspective, you know, they know the flow of a wedding, so they don't really need to see that rehashed.
Catherine just sparked something in my mind. We're just going to freeform it from here on out, ladies. So and Megan had talked about this, when you're going through, and it is really difficult to pare down a gallery that sometimes is more than 1,000 images and pare it down to 100 and 150. And sometimes you have to be, I'm taking the harsh critic on yourself. If it's not a good photo, don't put it in your submission gallery. Even if it's like, I tend to always get really sad with outdoor ceremonies on bright sunny days, because the rest of the images, the portraits are gorgeous. The getting ready is like soft and airy. The tables are, I mean, like the images are great. And then you get to this bright sunny ceremony and the pictures are all saturated and blown out and they look nothing like the rest of the suite. Sometimes you have to take a risk and just omit those images because they don't add anything to the submission, and they're definitely not going to get published if they don't feel cohesive with, you know, what your strongest images are. So don't be afraid to leave out what you might think is a required image if it really just isn't good. That's hard to do, but sometimes.
That's a good point. It's important.
Absolutely. All of that was very good, very good points all around. Jen, if you don't mind, I have been like looking around over here. I'm not able to see anything over in YouTube right now. I know you mentioned that there were some questions in the YouTube chat. It's not popping up for me. It's probably, I know it's user error. Let's be honest here. Not the techie, but I just can't quite figure it out. So if you don't mind, just kind of letting them know if they could pop their questions into this chat box. I like can't see it in YouTube at all. It's not, it's just not there. So anyway, if you don't mind, because I would hate for anyone's questions to go unanswered, like while we're all here, and while we're waiting for that to see if anybody happens to get that and is able to pop over in here. Oh my gosh, Jen, thank you. You're so sweet. So we'll just keep going. Okay, so Kathy asked, I screen print original artwork onto women's wear, home decor, etc. What's the best way to create a portfolio that features my artwork in a way that editors will want to see? That's a great question.
That is a great question. I would say kind of how we talked about building out your own articles that feature your work. So you can really take a step back and think about, the places that you want to be published first. I would say make a list of everywhere you would like to see your work published. Just to get inspired, and then start to see the content that is on those different outlets, like the different blogs or the different publications, see what they're posting about, and then see if you can kind of insert yourself in the conversation. So, we are going into fall, so we all know a lot of people are going to be talking about, fall fashion, fall trends, fall events, pumpkin spice lattes, things like that. So if there is some way that you can almost build out an article that that is trend-based, or that might not even have to do with your work specifically, you could put it in a roundup. Maybe it's a roundup of fall fashion, or, I have no idea what time of year Small Business Saturday is now that I'm thinking about it. November. So November, oh, that's great. It's like right around Black Friday. So Small Business Saturday is coming up. We know that happens every year. Maybe starting to make an outreach to some local publications that and say, hey, how can I help? Like, can I put together a roundup of really great small businesses who do similar work? Like, don't be afraid to put yourself in the conversation with your competitors, because that's okay. A lot of times the publication is a lot more likely to pick up an article or an idea that will touch a lot of different people or companies, as opposed to just doing a full feature on you. Those kinds of things rarely exist anymore. You can also submit, think about your story. Like, how did you get started? You as a business owner, is this something that you do on the side? Think about more career-oriented things outside of just a wedding industry. Career websites, or if people are talking about what it's like being a business owner, what it's like being a creative, even the process. I have no idea how you screen print your original artwork onto women's wear. So a how-to would be super interesting for me. So kind of think about you and your service offering on a larger scale. How can I get that information out? Something really well, but other people don't.
Yeah, and you can also think about approaching it from a styled shoot angle. So I know if you know somebody like Kat, who has organized styled shoots in the past, you can always touch base with them and say, hey, I've got these products. I'd love to be involved in somehow part of a styled shoot with you. I'd love to donate some of my elements and my time of helping you make that happen. And maybe come up with some ideas of how they could fit into a certain type of styled shoot. And that's a really interesting angle to go at it as well.
And I just thought about, Kathy, for you specifically, for people who are product-based, Christmas is coming, the holidays are coming, think gift guides. Gift guides are huge. Every blog and their mom puts out their gift guides. It's a big roundup of awesome products. So if you can get ahead of that now and start thinking, okay, it's fall, I know that all these people are planning these out, just start, pitching your content as, hey, this would be great for a gift guide. It's cool. It's this price point. These are the type of people who like to buy them from me as an FYI, that kind of thing. That's probably be an easy way to get published.
That's awesome. That's really, really helpful. I definitely agree. I feel like gift guides, I actually just got an email from Rising Tide Society today that said accepting submissions for their holiday gift guide. So I think maybe just taking a peek at the blogs that you love and follow and that you feel like attract your ideal client and that your potential buyers are going to be on is really, really smart with this season and this time of year. Jen is just on it. She's seriously like the best. So let's see. Lynn asked, and so I assume this is from the very first, or one of our first slides, Megan, that you were talking about. Are you saying 150 photos from the same event?
Yes. So each submission, generally when you're thinking about styled shoots or real weddings, needs to consist of one event. So I am saying generally 100 to 150 images from that one event.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Megan. And Alicia asked, will this be, or Alicia, I'm not quite sure how you pronounce that, so I apologize. I'll just say it both ways and we'll hopefully get one. Will this be available for viewing after the webinar? This is being recorded right now, so you all will get a link to be able to watch the recording. And we can send out a link so that you guys have a PDF of these slides as well, so that you're able to kind of look back at some of this really awesome information. And then Jen, last question I see, I have a lot of weddings where the brides and their families are doing a lot of things themselves, so there aren't a lot of vendors. Do these weddings still have a chance at being featured?
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. That's so exciting. People love that because not only are you inspiring people because there's so many people that want to be on the DIY side, that also opens you up to getting into those how-tos. You could have your couple write down some of the instructions, even be interviewed for something like that. So use that to your advantage and just make sure you're very open about that when you're pitching, because you don't want it to be marked as not a fit just because the vendor list looks small.
Yeah, and you really should take the time to research where you're pitching that to, because there are a lot of outlets that are exclusively DIY. So I'm just going to keep going back to Sound Me Pretty. Sound Me Pretty is not into DIY stuff. I mean, maybe one or two DIY elements that the bride really wanted to dive into and own. But when it comes to the production of the full event, they're not likely to take a DIY event. But I'm pretty sure there's a blog that's just called the DIY Bride.
Right, I think so. Yeah.
But yeah, there are lots of publications where that is their jam. And so you should become best friends with them and just, become a regular contributor or a regular submitter, really get to know them. And then as you're working through that process, then maybe eventually they'll be reaching out to you to see what kind of cool stuff you've been working on.
And I did want to say, taking a look at this subject as a whole, making your work for you, this can be a very overwhelming thing for a lot of people. A lot of you do back-to-back-to-back weddings, and then all of a sudden you're dumped with these images. You have so much work to do on your business. You're tired after wedding season. You just want to take a break, and then all of a sudden you're prepping for the next wedding season. So don't feel like you need to get every single one of your events published, every single one of your styled shoots published. I would say I'm big on annual planning. I always push this, when you're deciding a year, looking at your year at a glance, just decide 4 times during the year that you are going to try to get your work published. Pick 4 events out of the however many, even 2 events. I mean, getting published once a year is great. It's just one more badge you can add to your website every year. So don't feel like it's something that if you're not submitting once a week, you're doing a bad job. It's like doing it even once a month feels like a lot. So you could just do 4 times a year and it would be okay.
Yeah, and don't feel like you have.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just adding a funny quip. Anything is better than no times submitting.
Yeah, and don't feel like you have to wait for the top level event that you do to get it published. You would be surprised. I bet you have already multiple albums or events in your portfolio that would get picked up very quickly. So don't let that hold you back. Just get out there and try.
I love that. That's awesome. Thank you guys so much. I know when I was in my first season, a lot of the clients that I was working with weren't necessarily ideal, right? They were wonderful, wonderful people, and I loved working with them, but they weren't necessarily clients that I maybe wanted to book at like the same venues again, or the same general aesthetic. And that was during the like crazy burlap and lace phase of our lives. We all remember that. We try to forget that. Like, come on. And I'm in the South. I love mason jars, but like burlap and lace, what are we doing? And something that a mentor told me at the time, and just in terms of like marketing wise, right? Because I was nervous about even submitting some of these, was try to find at least one image from every single thing that you do. So while that obviously you're going to be submitting a lot more, right? Like 100 to 150 images for those submissions and kind of going in a different direction. But at least in terms of marketing, like thinking, okay, what can I zoom in on, right? Maybe I want to focus on the couple instead of the details, or this centerpiece really is beautiful. Let's like not show the fact that it's a burlap runner, or, you know, whatever it is that we're working with there. And that can really help you to be able to still show that you're busy, be able to still promote your business, and be really heartfelt and genuine with it, but also be wanting to attract the clients that you're looking for. So I think it's awesome that you have a lot of DIY couples right now, and I love all of the advice that these ladies were able to give you. Okay, I will let them tell you a little bit more about the thank yous that they have for you guys, and then we'll go ahead and wrap up our time together since we're almost at an hour.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Kat, and thank you, everybody, for your great questions. So as Kat mentioned, we do have a little thank you for everybody who's joined. So we are offering 15% off an annual Two Bright Lights subscription. And it's actually a really exciting time to jump on board, because this summer we released some very new features, and very helpful features, I should say. So we now have a publication matching tool. The great part about that is you don't have to spend hours and hours of research trying to figure out what the perfect fit is for you and your work. Our system takes all the tags and everything that you've put into your album and does this little magic thing, and then voila, you've got these recommended publications ready there for you to check out. But we don't limit you to that. So if you don't feel like those are the ones that you want to be going after, or you want to try something new, you still can access the hundreds of publications that we have on the Two Bright Lights platform. So that code Creative17 will get you 15% off, and feel free to reach out to us anytime with any questions. That is why we're here to help. You are not alone in this road to getting published. That's what we're here for.
And on the aisle planner side of things, if you have not tried aisle planner before, I highly recommend it. If you are in the wedding industry, this is a huge thing that we are promoting. We are not just for wedding planners anymore. So if you are in the wedding industry, you're a professional, you need professional project management tools to keep your business looking beautiful and running smoothly, please check out aisle planner. Just give this a try. If you would like, we have a code Creative at Heart for a free 30-day trial, and then 25% off your first 3 months of your subscription. And these are our direct emails. So again, like Megan said, please feel free to reach out and ask questions. You know, my background is in PR. I also own a wedding planning business. You know, Taylor is a marketing guru, expert level. So these are things that we love to talk about. And obviously in the questions portion of this, we could go on and on probably about a lot of topics for a long time. So please reach out, say hi, send us some questions. We'd be happy to answer.
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you all so much. And for those of you guys that were able to tune in live, thank you for hanging out with us this morning or afternoon, depending on where you are in the country. And for those of y'all that are watching the replay, I'm really glad you were able to pop over and watch the replay. You guys will be getting an email later today with the replay link. For those of y'all that are in here live, we'll also include a link to the PDF version of these slides. So you guys can kind of take a look and also have these discount codes in case you missed it and you're like trying to jot things down so quickly, like we understand all of that. And definitely feel free to reach out to any of us if you have questions. We are happy to help and definitely cheering for you. So thanks you all so much, and we hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.